Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Ori and the Blind Forest All Skills Tournament. My name is Vol'jin. I'm here this morning alongside Grimelios, and we're going to be bringing you this very special race between TheRo0seIsLo0se and Smashfully. Grim, how are you doing this morning?
I am awake. How about you?
Indeed. I think we're all at approximately that that point.
At least we just have to talk. Roos and Smash, you have to actually race.
That is true. And I'm sure they'll get underway with that pretty shortly. So as we're coming into this, we can take a quick look at kind of what we're looking at here in this race matchup. Roos and Smashy are in the Valley of the Wind group. I was just looking at this too a moment ago. So in the Valley of the Wind, this is actually going to be Roos's final matchup of the group stage. Of course, it's a round robin between a group of 4 people, so he's already played his 2 other matches. This will be his final match, and for Smashy, it's her second one. And Grim, what do you think we're going to see from these 2 runners today, and what do you think they're trying to accomplish?
Sure. Thinking about this race a little bit, sounds a bit corny, but the first thing I thought is that these 2 are, I mean, everyone in the Ori community is nice and friendly to each other, but these 2 are especially very, very good friends. In terms of what we'll be seeing out of it, Smashy had one of her goals for the tournament as getting sub 40, which she has already achieved. And that's really, really fantastic for her. Congratulations to her. And Roos had his goal to do better in the tournament, and he has actually already PB'd very recently as well, although neither of them have submitted their PBs, which means that Sigma and I guess the other Ori mods get to do lots of fun work verifying lots of Ori runs. But it should be a good time. Roos's PB is a few minutes faster than Smashy, so on paper, Roos should come out the winner, although I think they're close enough and they've both been practicing enough that, I mean, you know how Ori goes, a few costly mistakes and someone else could take the lead.
Indeed. Well, I'm definitely glad you mentioned that what great friends they are, because we actually were just informed right before the race started. We were not aware that this was going to be happening, but Roos and Smashy are apparently doing this race live in person. They do live pretty close to one another, so the fact that they are able to actually, one of them went to the other person's house and they're running side by side. Do you think that's going to change the dynamic here at all?
I think it'll change it in a positive way. We've talked in other races, and all the commentators have talked about whether you watch the other person's race, whether you maybe even watch your own timer. And there are pros and cons to either approach, but I think that it's just going to make it very, very fun. There's always, I guess, the risk of tilt, but neither of these 2 are the kinds of runners to get very tilted anyway. I mean, Roos has had some pretty catastrophic mistakes in some of his runs, like a certain thing that happened in Final Fantasy, but he tends to not let it get to him. And I know that these 2 are close enough friends that I think they'll probably be laughing in the background, even though we can't hear them.
Yeah, you know, an interesting aspect that it'll also bring is we haven't really seen in an online tournament, obviously, we don't really get to see the racers have the ability to live screen peek at each other. You know, most of the time it's, oh, well, we can, you know, watch the other person's Twitch stream, but they don't usually have the opportunity to actually just look to the right and see the other person playing the game.
Right. It'll be like old school Halo screen peeking.
We do appear to have gotten started. We're going to get going and head towards the Spirit Flame. I would not expect to see any early game shenanigans of the type that we saw between Roos and Epic Cat a couple days ago.
I think Roos has probably gotten at least part of the troll out of his system, just for the time being.
But we do see a color code from Smashfully, so that's nice. She gets a nice light blue, nice and visible, very high contrast with the background. You definitely prefer that to the dark purples and such.
Is it possible to get pure invis, or is Smashy actually having a trouble with the Rhino?
That is something I've actually never seen. I have straight up someone die to the Rhino. So
it's like the ultimate version of the grotto skip, a trick that's easy enough that you don't think about it at all. You do it enough times since it's right at the beginning of the run, it's bound to happen eventually.
Indeed. In any case, after that mishap, Smashy is on her way So not too huge of a deal. Obviously, you save right before that sequence, so it's not too bad.
Roos also hit the diving board on the way down, so not as costly as that tiny little rhino death, but it's right at the beginning of the game. The diving
I've actually
board.
never heard it called that before, but it makes complete sense.
It is. It's a diving board. You dive face first into glades. For some reason.
Nice, or he does a nice belly flop directly into the sunken glades.
Absolutely. I agree, though. I don't think we'll be seeing too many shenanigans. We know what tricks these runners are planning on going for. They're both going to be going for Kuro cutscene skip. There's not much reason not to go for it. I guess even if you have no idea what you're doing with Kuro cutscene skip, it loses you like 1 second, so you might as well take the shot. They're both going to be going for fast stopless later on. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
That was scary.
A little bit of a scary moment for Roos. He took 2 damage from that slime. You only have 3 HP at this point, so he was very close to death there, but he managed to salvage it.
There's a good little realization. You could sort of see his thought process of just hesitating for a moment on whether to turn back or not, and I think that was a smart choice. I think he probably would have died if he had tried to rush it.
We're heading up to the 4th health pickup, which both these runners definitely going to want that extra safety net to protect them from mishaps such as the ones they've already had. Roos is coming down into the infamous elbow. Not too much of a trouble with the slime there as he manages to take it out. Smashy is fairly close behind right now, so not a particularly sizable deficit just yet.
Right, absolutely. Sort of, I don't know. It's enjoyable to watch these early sections. Every Ori runner, like any speedrun, you end up doing the first section so many times. Here, Bruce with the time level up, and we'll see. Looks like Smash is going to get hers as well based on her experience level. It's always interesting to watch these early sections. You have sort of a love-hate relationship with it because every time you reset, you have to do this early section again, which means you get really good at it because you've done it so many times. It also means that you know every possible place to make a mistake and take a silly death.
Yeah, for sure. Not only that, but you get so good at it because, of course, if you do this hundreds and hundreds of times, you can't not get good at it. But at the same time, your standards go up so high that even like losing 1 second because I took an extra damage boost or something starts to grate at you. And it's interesting to see how different runners handle that that mental fatigue and decide how to compartmentalize that, that section of the game in their minds.
I think I remember you mentioning that in another race, actually, where like if you made one tiny wall jump mistake or something and lost like a second in Sorrow Pass, you'd think that was a really, really good Sorrow Pass. I only lost, 1 second. Like it could be improved. That was so good. Whereas here, you lose a quarter second on a little turn or against a wall and you think I should probably reset.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, both runners making their way towards BRB, Blackroot Burrows. Roos is out to a decent lead, but we're only talking about 7 or 8 seconds or so. So it's not too bad yet. He takes a little damage from that slime. He's going to want to play it a little safe on this one here. He does dodge the shots, so no problem for him. He's going to avoid running into those brambles here. And he is on his way to the Save Anywhere glitch.
Always nice to be at, if you can, full health going into Blackroot Burrows. Hopefully you don't take a spike bath in any capacity, but if you do, you can survive a little bit if you have a little bit of health.
Indeed, and Smashy's got 3 health on her side. I missed Roos's health count. He had taken 2 from that slime, and he had to take 1 from the damage boost coming out of the elbow earlier, so he may be pretty low on health. We're going to keep an eye on that as he goes into Blackroot.
It's always sort of interesting to me as a very sort of small point about Ori to see when runners decide to turn their UI back on. And I think it can be sort of, this might not be so much the case in theirs, but it can be almost an indication of nerves because you get so used to having the UI off. A lot of new runners might think it's like a huge detriment to not be able to see your health. And it's really not.
Oh God, sticky keys. No, sticky keys.
Roos did mention that he was playing on a laptop, not his usual setup. Little death there, which actually puts Smashy in the lead. Thankfully not too costly for Roos. If you're going to die in Blackroot, that's the place to do it, right at the beginning of this section.
Smashy had a quick scare as well, but she did make it to the laser. She's got a good cycle there, so she's all right. Bruce is making his way through. He is going to play the lasers properly and makes his way up. And he's getting a pretty good cycle on these platforms. Again, these platforms are all on timed cycles that start when you enter the area. So it looks like they both got pretty good cycles. Not sure. Both of them seem to be a little bit off the normal cadence. So I'm not sure if this was the fastest cycle they both could have gotten. It's just hard to tell.
I wonder if the time of the race in terms of time of day has something to do with it. Both of these guys are in Central Time, same as me, so it's 10 whatever a.m., which is not so early that hopefully you're still asleep, but certainly earlier than I think either of these two would ever be streaming or anything.
It's probably earlier than most people are playing competitive video games, that's for sure.
Right, definitely.
So Smashy making her way over to the Switch and pulling it safely. Bruce also doing the same, just a couple seconds difference right now. A good job on both of their parts to not take any further deaths. I'm sure, of course, they're both looking at each other's screens, and they both probably had a good laugh. And
No.
Sticky Keys, no! He's disabling Sticky Keys.
That is the ultimate improv strat. My God.
Always scan this section.
I am just in stitches right now. That's going to give Smashy another 5 or 10 seconds of advantage. Unfortunately, the game does pause when it's not in focus. There is actually a DLL that we provide in the community, which its sole change to the game is that it causes it not to pause.
Start magnifier.
When you tap out. However, Roos does not have that on his current machine, apparently.
Start narrator.
Smashy making her dash glide across the way here. Go ahead.
Start on screen
I don't
keyboard.
have my game audio on because we'd be hearing double audio, but apparently the accessibility narrator got turned off.
No. Oh no.
Oh goodness. I'm not happy to see the time loss, but I'm really excited to watch this back later.
Oh goodness.
Oh man, the perils of running Ori, there are dangers apart from spikes, it turns out.
PC games are not to be messed with, my friend.
No, they are not. I
Yes.
think it's important to reiterate the relationship these two have, though, where depending on the runner and the game, I think tilt is always a factor, but I guarantee that Bruce is just laughing.
Yeah,
just laughing like crazy right now.
Smashy making her way across the spikes with the Frankie walk. Yeah, these two runners, not only are these two runners both great friends, but Roos in particular, his mental makeup is so strong. Roos in his day job, I believe, is an EMT, and so he has a lot of experience kind of dealing with very high stress. And so in a situation like this, like the stress level of just participating in a race, I mean, obviously, of course, there's going to be nerves because that just happens. That's just how the human body reacts. But for someone like Roos, who has a lot of experience dealing with that, in a situation like this, he has a lot of basically robustness, his ability to say, like, I'm fine. I can keep going. I can keep racing. None of this is going to faze me.
Definitely. Do you think we will see the early grotto cycle here from Roos, or an attempt at it?
He will certainly attempt it. He is pulling off an attempt. Unfortunately, it did not quite work out. That is a very, it's one of those tricks that is pretty low risk to go for. There is a possibility of accidentally taking the 1 frame death there, as Smashy's going to damage down to 1 to set up her ghost door. But that's actually fairly rare. So most runners if they have had the time to invest in trying to learn it, they're definitely going to go for it. Unfortunately, it takes some, ooh, goodness. Careful dodge there by Smashy, but she makes it through to double jump. But yeah, it just takes some precise wall jumping at that section in order to be able to do that early cycle.
Still very, very close getting into double jump. Some pretty good, not exactly adaptations. They didn't do anything differently. Ooh, Roos actually missed his blind movement.
As did Smashy, or possibly they agreed not to go for it. It's hard to say. But yeah, they'll both be just going back the normal way.
I guess it's sort of good that they both missed it. It gives it a little bit of a closer race. Not
Yeah,
good
I'll
in the
definitely be
speedrunning
interested.
sense, but but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Well, there's a lot of risk in the blind movement, just in terms of, it's easy. The less experienced you are, it's easier to fall into the water and just get caught there and take an extra death. And that death's not very costly, but it quickly adds up.
Oh my god! That spike hitbox was in Smashy's favor.
Absolutely scraping the edge of the spikes. Ori's whiskers took a little bit of but she is
Does Ori
fine.
have
She's
whiskers?
making her way up. I don't know, but it seems
Do
to be
leaves
like
have whiskers?
it seems to be like every animal combined. So I'm guessing maybe yes.
Yeah, that seems likely. That seems likely.
Roos did manage to pull back into the lead slightly with a cleaner grotto skip. Didn't take that fall all the way back down to the bottom, so that's going to help him a little bit. He's already at the top of the rockfall shaft. Smashy, however, close in behind doing her save glitch to skip this cutscene as well. They're both going to be picking up the water vein. Good progress so far from both of them.
Definitely. It's always interesting to me to see where people, can lose a bit of time. Where is Roos's door? That was interesting. That was like a Hatfield scenario. Anyway.
I wonder if he opened it accidentally, or possibly was even thinking about going for the 5th health.
Maybe. I mean, I guess if you were to go for the 5th health cell, not to diminish Smashy's skill by any means, but Roos, knows that he is a little bit faster on his PB, so as opposed to maybe racing Epicat or something, he might feel a little more comfortable going for more health. Although I don't think we'll see it. That would be pretty unusual for him, even in a race scenario.
Agreed. Even Smashy, her runs are 4 health, so it would be, sometimes if you try to go out of your way to do one of those safety strats, quote unquote, the end result is that it takes you longer to actually do the strat than the amount of time it would save in theoretical deaths, because you're just not used to doing it. And that health cell in particular, there's a very awkward jump to get to it.
It's like our mini iceless, sort of. Let's just label every jump in the game some version of iceless. This is iceless 29. In this
Well, we're well on our way in that regard.
Yeah, we are. I had a thought, but I lost it. So I'm going to just say that out loud.
So Roos damage boosted through the slime, and he's making his way up into Ginso tree. He's going to be entering very shortly. Smashy looked like she had a little trouble with her cutscene skip here. No, she's good. So she'll be entering Ginso as well, around 10 seconds behind. Still very close, and definitely within the range of a single death.
Oh yeah, especially in Ginso. And I think an interesting part of this run is that, generally speaking, deaths, I think, tend to get more costly as you go on, depending on how many safety saves you want to make, especially once you start getting into Sorrow Pass and Misty range. In that area, if you take an unwanted death, sometimes it can just be catastrophic. You can lose maybe like a minute, depending on how far away you were from your last save.
Yeah, for sure. I think the beginning of Ginso is actually one of the higher death amount areas. That's the word. In terms of, like, if you die, you will take easily 30 to 40 seconds of time loss for a single death, just because of how slow it is to ascend the first couple rooms of Ginso. Smashy getting sniped by the spider shot through the teleporter. You can see that coming if you've played the game enough, but at the same time, you frequently feel like there's nothing you can do about it. Fortunately, she had enough health for that.
That's so interesting. When Ori goes through a teleporter, the camera has to pan, so you can tell that the developers programmed in a little bit of delay, but not the case for the projectile. So you can go in the teleporter ahead of a projectile and then have it catch up to you and hit you when you come out the other side. It's rare, but it has happened, and I've seen people die from it.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen people lose runs to that before, and it's happened to me as well. Meanwhile, they are both in the mini-boss right now. Roos just finishing up, and Smashy about midway through his fairly healthy HP bar. Pretty much neck and neck at this point, still within that 10-second range.
Smashy's green, that's appropriate for this giant tree.
Lovely color.
Very lovely. Did you know I haven't been able to get the code to work on controller? I wonder if they changed it in DE, like to be a little more precise or something.
It is rather awkward to enter on a controller in DE. I'm not entirely sure why, but I've observed the same. So if anyone at home If you've ever tried the color code, which is just left, up, right, down, up, jump. If you try to enter that code on controller and it doesn't work for you, just do it on keyboard using the WASD controls and stuff. Spacebar is jump, and you can get yourself a multicolored Ori. Or sorry, a randomly colored Ori.
Yes. When is Kappa Pride Ori DLL? Devil, get on it, please.
Gosh, please no.
They're still very, very close after Bash. Roos had a nice little adaptation in his pre-Bash room. He sort of didn't take damage where he intended to, but went out of his way to do it. They both had a clean Ghost Door. It can be trickier than it looks. Ooh. A little death there, actually.
Indeed. That one's definitely one of the quickest deaths to take in all of Yinso. Riss is having a little bit of a scare here. Fortunately, the projectiles from these mortar worms only do 1 damage each, but now they're even closer than they already were. Smashy is on her way up to Key Dupe as well. She makes that climb no problem, so that's good for her. Roos gets the quick lineup into the Key Dupe death spot. So he has got his 3 keys duplicated now, and he's able to climb up successfully this time. Smashy pulls it off as well. Beautiful for her as well. And they've both got their keys duplicated. They're both going to collect the next 4 and then open the door and do their ghost doors.
Smashy actually just took the same death that Roos did. That little damage boost is trickier than it looks.
You see that she turned her UI back on. She almost certainly was just making sure that she did keep the keystones. And it looks like she did. As long as you rekindle the key, as long as you rekindle the save after you duplicate the keys, you will be fine if you die again. But if you don't rekindle and you die, then you will lose those keystones that you duplicate. You'll have to do it again. So that becomes a massive time loss. Fortunately, she did not have that happen.
Key dupe is a trick that's been around it a long time. It's actually been done in a few different places over the course of Ori's speedrunning history. Nice course skip by Roos and Smashfully coming up to it. The current setup for key dupe, where you kind of launch yourself a little bit to the left and then land right in the little nook of the spikes and the mini wall there, I think is quite a bit more recent.
Yeah, Sigma came up with that, I want to say a couple months ago. And it's very risky if you are not very practiced in that aim. There's a very specific spot where you have to aim.
Smashy had some trouble with core skip. She just messed up her movement a little bit, and she's going to opt for the death and try it again. I think that's a smart move. I don't know how fast the right room is optimally, because nobody ever does the right room, so I'm sure she doesn't know how to do it optimally either.
Yeah, there's a very fast strat to do the right room. It's still on the order of 20 seconds, and it requires a precise aim on a bash redirect of a spider shot. So you don't really want to have to rely on that when it's not something you're used to doing. She does get the good core skip this time, so she will be able to continue to the escape.
And that's going to give Roos more of a sizable lead. We'll see how his next sections go.
As he comes into Thornfelt Swamp, Gumo saving Ori from the
Crow's
something story event that happened. I don't know. We skipped the cutscene. It's fine.
there's a bird for some reason.
For some reason.
It's not important.
We're just making use of the duplicated keystones to open that door so that he doesn't have to do around a minute of swimming down below in this area. So he is fast approaching Stomp as Smashy.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow. Please. As Rich continues to have computer issues plague him, but he's still maintaining the lead despite it, as Smashy is making solid progress through the escape, not having any real difficulties here. So definitely looks like she's been able to kind of reset herself mentally after that core skip loss, not really getting set back in that regard.
It's sort of too bad that this is a speedrun and we have to skip all the cutscenes. For anyone who maybe hasn't played this game casually, I would highly recommend it. The cutscenes and the story is simple, but I think it's good. The cutscenes are really pretty beautiful, especially coming out of Ginso. You just obviously skip it in this scenario.
Yeah, even in this game, even if they don't give us a skip cutscene option, we're usually skipping the cutscenes. So.
It's so bizarre to me that some of the cutscenes are skippable and some are not.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the logic behind that is exactly.
Right, and it's actually funny. You mentioned, are there any cutscenes that you watch, maybe besides Kuro cutscene, if you mess that up? That you can think of?
Complete blank.
Right.
Yeah,
the only one I can think of, which is not in the current route, is back in the olden days of Ori. If you ever had to do the R1.
Oh, speaking of cutscene skips, by the way, we have one possibly coming up here. Let's see if Bruce gets it.
Nice.
He does get it. Nice job.
Very, very clean. Anyway, R1, the top right room in Mount Horu, there is a cutscene when you enter it, and of course we don't do that in this run. I think that was an accidental double bash by Roos. In that room is the only cutscene in the game that I think we don't know how to skip, and Roos is opting to only go for 4 energy, skipping the 5th one, so that'll be a time save, although it makes Sorrow Pass especially riskier later on.
You know, I've got some news for you that might surprise you. We do know a way to skip that cutscene.
Really? This is news to me.
We're receiving some key insights from our crew in the truck, and they're pointing out that there's a mini Gumo cutscene as you're leaving Moon Grotto. That you do see, and there's also the cutscene that you see upon entering the Ginso tree. So if you want to call those cutscenes, they're both about like 5 seconds each.
I guess they are technically cutscenes.
Roos is coming up on the Spirit Tree. He manages to get the skip pretty well, and he got a very nice dash glide over the Spirit Well as well. So getting good position there. Smashy had taken at least 1 death. I'm not sure if there were others coming out of Stomp. But now she seems to be good. She's going for her Kuro cutscene skip, and she does get it.
Oh
very
my
nice.
Goodness.
Nice. So there's actually no cutscene there. We were just making it up. No.
Yes. It's the we're in on the joke.
Yeah, that's the beauty of that cutscene skip though, is you're bashing through a very as Smashy's picking up the 5th energy cell, by the way. Probably a good idea to be able to get the advantages from those safety saves later on.
Definitely.
But with that cutscene skip, you basically don't notice if it is successful. It doesn't look like anything.
Roos again with only 4 energy, which doesn't make too much of a difference right now. He'll be coming up on fast Stompless, so actually I'll hold my other thought and see how it goes for him. He has to bash one of these spider's projectiles at a rather specific angle, and then rush back as quickly as he can to go grab an ability cell before the projectile hits. Ooh, swag, I like it. Nice,
he got
very
clean. Indeed. So no problems for Roos on fast Stompless, which is always good. If you do miss that, there's a couple different ways you can miss it, and of course the fastest way you can miss it only costs you about 35 to 40 seconds. So you really don't want to miss fast Stompless if you can at all avoid it.
Smashy has also gotten past her Spirit Tree cutscene. That Spirit Tree cutscene is pretty lengthy as well, and it's one that you very, very rarely watch, but I suppose if you were to make mistakes, you'd have to go through it. It actually tells you about the story of the game. It's meant to happen very early on.
So we skip it. A rough death for Smashy. Any death in Valley of the Wind is going to be really costly just because of all the movement involved in getting back there. It tends to be on the order of 15 seconds minimum. And that one was probably around 20. So Roos, meanwhile, he just had a very, very clean Sorrow Bash. It looked to be first try, and he's not really having any problems at this stage. He's quietly and quickly opened up a very substantial lead over Smashy since finishing the Ginso tree. So really showing us, exactly what his current skill level is.
Definitely.
And,
yeah, this area is where that 5th energy cell can come in very, very handy, because Sorrow Pass, to go through it optimally, you really can't make any safety saves without going out of your way to get an additional energy. Looks like he's having no trouble so far. His frog juggle is going clean, and most importantly, he's gotten the frog past all those ridiculously dangerous spikes.
Whew, a little bit of a close call for Smashy on the air stomp there, but she's fine. Roos has broken the ceiling, and he does get the well-timed rocket jump up to the top.
That was a very nice arrow pass.
Indeed, as Smashy's setting up fast Stompless, she's got her shot, looks pretty good. She's making her way back up, getting up to the ability cell. No problem for her. Very nicely executed.
I love how easy everyone makes these tricks looks when they are anything but easy.
Indeed. Yeah, Fast Stompless is a very challenging trick. There's a lot of moving parts, both literally and figuratively. But Smashfully and Roos both getting very good aim on their shots there, which is not an easy feat. And then also getting the quick movement back to the ability cell, which I guess you would technically say is probably the easier part of the trick, but it's still hard.
Especially because you can get sad cellless if you mess that up, and you lose more time than if you had just not even tried Fast Stompless.
Yeah, that's more on the order of nearly a minute. Roos is coming in to charge jump, no problem at all, making his way down from Sunstone. So he's got the key to the final dungeon. He's got all but 2 of the skills. All he'll have to do is make his detour to Misty Woods, and I say, quote unquote, all he has to do. Misty Woods, of course, is not easy.
No, it is not. To make it extra clear, this has been something that's been mentioned in multiple races, but all of the spikes in Sorrow pass do 4 damage, which means even with that safety health, you will die in 1 hit. So especially going to charge jump, that's very dangerous. In Misty Woods, the spikes only do 3 damage. Excuse me, Smashy dropped her frog, so she has to go and get it again. That's going to be a time loss. Hopefully she... Oh my gosh,
I think she's not sure what the backup here is, so she's going to take an intentional death. That backup is you basically have to grab a different frog, and you've got to juggle him up to that platform as quickly as possible. But very few runners are going to actually know what that backup is offhand. She did have a very clean Sorrow Bash, and she has another very clean Sorrow Bash the second try. Very good job on those double bashes, even if you're using the sort of free method of doing double bashes, where you can find 2 keys to both be the C key, and then use those to execute a double bash. We call it for free, basically, but it's actually still really finicky, so pulling one off every single time, not the easiest thing.
I think that's a general statement for the Ori community. If you ever hear of something called free, it's probably the opposite of free. The more people refer to it as free, probably the harder the trick is. Like Iceless, for instance, completely free.
Agreed.
Bruce is making his way to climb. Looks like he got there without any difficulty. Very solid run by him so far.
Yeah, we were just talking about Sorrow in the time that it took him to do all of Misty. Well, half of Misty. He has to make his way out now. And so you should definitely keep your eye on Roos's screen for some very nice Misty movements. It's always a fun area to watch done quickly. You see a lot of charge dashes with bash canceling. Again, charge dash is an ability that costs 1 energy and causes you to go really, really fast, as well as damage an enemy when you hit it. But if you cancel it with a bash or a stomp, it refunds that energy, and Roos is going to make a lot of use of those qualities with both bash and stomp.
He's doing very well on his energy management too. The risk with going for a lot of these stomp cancels and whatnot is that if you make mistakes, you can run out of energy. And if you run out of energy, you can't charge dash anymore, and you lose a lot of time. You have to move around basically as intended, maybe with the exception of bash glides. But he's full up on energy. That's going to be good news not only for his movement, but for the mini boss coming up.
Somewhat surprisingly, he took a little damage there and opted not to do a safety save. I think he's feeling pretty confident in his movement right now, which is not unjustified. Smashy, meanwhile, is coming up to charge jump, so she had a very good Sorrow pass after the 1 issue that she had with the frog. Definitely going to be good for her. Roos almost gets the perfect quick kill, but a very interesting backup there. He missed a small amount of damage on the left mini boss, but he managed to redirect the shot into it in the ground. So very good adaptation.
You can actually stomp those mini bosses when they're sort of in the ground, and there's maybe a second or 2 of animation when they're sort of burrowing out of the ground. But he saved a little bit of time by hitting the second one with the projectile instead.
I'm actually not even sure that saves time technically because of the time spent lining up the bash. But
Oh,
it
yeah.
sure looked cool.
I always forget about that. Well, for the swag factor alone, it's nice. And he's going into the next section, excuse me. Smash you with a death on the right side. Roos is going into the next section with an energy, which will help him for the little lever save he has to do. Although he's opting for the safety save anyway.
Most people are going to go for that. It's nice to be able to dump all of your energy coming back from Misty across that big open gap. So Smashy having some problems getting out of charge jump, but she does make it now. She's going to take it nice and slow. It's probably better to take it slow like this rather than just take another like 3 or 4 deaths if you're not feeling confident in the spike movement on a given day.
I'm curious, what do you think maybe, especially Smashy's mindset is right now, especially given that they're doing this race in person? I suppose we talked about it a little, but at this point in the race.
Yeah, I'm thinking they're probably just having like out loud conversation during this a little bit. It would not at all surprise me, and it would probably at least take Smashy's mind a little bit off of, focused on, oh god, I have to play properly, I have to like not die here or whatever. Bruce is probably helping loosen her up a little bit. Despite the fact, of course, that she's behind by a fair bit. I think that is going to help her, her personal mental state a bit.
Definitely. And it's like, I think this would be true for most speed games you could find. But the Ori community especially is so close that although Roos, of course, is going to keep doing his best to get the best time that he can, despite Windows trying to keep the forest blind. I mean, I know that Roos is just sitting there rooting for Smashy. He would love nothing more than to see Smashy come out and, destroy her PB or something like that.
Alright, Roos with a very, very good Blackroot Burrows revisit in order to get Light Burst, the final skill. He is on his way on the teleporter back to Thornfelt Swamp, where he's going to be heading to the final dungeon, Mount Horu. So he's coming in with a very solid time here. I don't want to say the magic words yet, but we'll figure out where we are in a minute when he gets to the Horu door. Oh goodness, a little bit of a scare there.
Bashing off of that particular group of brambles is pretty
terrifying.
Finicky for some reason. Yeah,
the word is terrifying.
Yes, it is. It is terrifying. I don't know what it is. Maybe you always kind of latch onto the wrong one or something.
Yeah, they just have a very awkward behavior there. As Smashy comes into climb, so she just had a very solid Misty while we basically blinked and looked away. That was enough for her. Roos on not quite PB pace, but he is on high 35 pace, which is fantastic. He'll be very happy if he can finish this off without any further incidents.
I'm curious. We'll see how Door Warp goes. As always, good luck on Door Warp. But when he finishes his run, I'd be curious to go back and see how much time he lost. First try,
jeez.
It's his revenge against Sticky Keys.
I don't want to be the guy that says it, but at the end, he might only miss PB by the amount of time that he lost to technical issues.
I was thinking the same thing, actually. The real question, though, what is the real question in the final escape?
Oh man, I mean, there's no question. He's going to do things. We know.
Smashy on the right side, unfortunately, took a quick death. Not too quick, but it could have been worse there, I suppose.
Yeah, the dying anywhere on the second half of this is definitely where the big costly deaths can occur. And she did take a safety save a little bit through the way, so that was good. I'm gonna guess on the way in here, she's gonna do another one. Bruce is, of course, going for fish strats. Who would have doubted it? We're gonna see if he's able to pull this off for that guy.
Nice.
Of course he is, no problem. Bruce being a fish strats veteran. He's gonna come in with around a 35-40, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a time he'll be proud of.
Fish strats, veteran.
Smashy taking a rough death, but she did make a safety save there. It looks like she made it before the spike pit, so unfortunately she has to go across again to collect the key. But now she's going to be on her way again. This section's really, really rough, and it's pretty easy to take a lot of deaths here, so she's going to kind of try to take it a little bit easier now. She's not going to go breakneck pace entirely.
There's also absolutely no question, as opposed to other races, whether she wonders whether she's in the lead or not. That's a very convoluted sentence, but she absolutely knows that Roos is done and just walking to the end of the timer.
Indeed, and she's probably, of course, giving him a verbal pat on the back, if not a physical one. To go like, good job, congratulations. Roos is definitely gonna be very happy with this. He he had mentioned that his goal was he wanted to kind of improve each time and do better. And in his second race against Epicat, he took a fairly substantially worse time than his first race. Not that it was a particularly bad performance, but Roos is the kind of guy who always wants to be able to improve. So getting a 35-43 in his third race of the tournament, which is a very, very good time. He will definitely be proud of that.
Definitely. Chat, thank you, Trojan, saying that Roos's PB is 35-23. So that is 20 seconds off his PB. How much time did Windows lose?
I'm not even going to think about it. And I'm sure Roos won't either.
So Smashy had a little trouble getting back out of Misty. If you don't sort of do your, charge dashes in midair properly, you can sort of get stuck on the platforms underneath. She opted to, rather than trying to do a tricky double jump in midair, just sort of slide down and do a charge jump off the wall, which is something you can do, even though you don't do it in the run.
Indeed.
And then she'll be continuing on towards Light Burst.
In fact, I can't think of any category in which we actually do that kind of charge jump off a wall. It's just so slow.
Yeah, I don't know either. I can't think of it.
Smashy takes the intentional death there in order to force the door on the right side open. That's going to allow her to go use the teleporter later on, the same one Roos used. So that is an intentional death. It is not an accident when that occurs. She does get the Yoka cycle. Very good on her part. We used to think that was a lot harder than it actually is. Ooh, takes a nice charge dash directly into the spikes, but no problem there. She's still alive, and that's really what matters. And she'll get her cutscene skip as well.
Do we want to talk a moment about the group and the records of everyone in the group? Roos now being 2-1, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's actually done with his group stage.
Yes, has been Roos's final match of the group stage. He will take a 2-1 record. He has taken his one loss to Epic Cat. So Epic Cat has only done his one match so far against Roos. He's got his matches against Smashy and Random left. And Epic has, outside of the tournament, Epic has been on a constant improvement pace over the past several weeks. So it is not at all unreasonable to think that he is going to win both of his remaining matches against Smashy and Random, with, of course, no disrespect to them at all. But at the same time that they've been improving, he has also been improving. It's kind of frightening. So I would expect him to go 3-0. And here, of course, you're seeing Roos has gone 2-1. So the group should probably be pretty well decided here. Of course, Random was able to take a victory over Smashy. So there's a pretty high likelihood. Ooh. Rough death for Smashy, but fortunately she had a save right there. Good safety save choice on her part. But yeah, it's looking like the group will go number 1 Epic, number 2 Roos, and Random 3rd and Smashy 4th based on the head-to-head. So unless we see something crazy happen, you never know, right?
That's true, and even though, again, we still have some races to go, but since it's likely that Epic Cat will take first in his group, that would put him at a better seed for the elimination round, although Roos is also, as we've mentioned, also now done with his group stages pretty early on, so if he wants to continue practicing as hard as he has been, and I know that he's been putting a lot of time into Ori, he'll have probably a solid week and a half or so to practice before all of the group stages are done.
Indeed. And it's good to remind people that as Smashy is coming up on Mount Horu herself in her own door warp, it's good to remind everybody that there's no elimination occurring in the group stage of this tournament. All 4 players in this group are going to advance to our bracket. It will be every player in the tournament in the bracket, but it will be single elimination, and the obviously based on your position in the group, you're going to get a better seed in that bracket. So the first seeds are going 1 through 9, and the second seeds are going 10 through 18, etc. So
another first try door warp.
That is not an easy trick, folks. That's not at all free by any stretch of the imagination. So getting it first try, especially in anything resembling a good time, is going to feel really good. Smashy looks like she's on pace for a round of 41, so that's going to be pretty solid for her.
Just one escape left.
Yep. And as we've said before in a couple other races, pulling within a couple minutes of your PB in a race is always fine. Like, that is a good time.
Definitely. I'm always curious as well to see how much nerves come into play. I would expect that nerves probably weren't too big a factor, especially for Roos, as we mentioned. He has good mental fortitude for that kind of thing. And Smashy certainly would have been in very good, friendly company for this race, but I know that she was nervous for her last one.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly a matter of being used to dealing with nerves. Of course, there's gonna be a thing we're gonna talk about frequently. Smashy opting not to go for fish strats. She does manage to avoid Kuro's attack there, so she's good. She will cross the finish line there. Looks like it's gonna be around a 42, actually, a low 42.
Still a very, very respectable time. She just has to hold right, and then she'll be done with her little Nibel adventure.
So, of course, we'll say congratulations to Roos on his victory here, coming out with a 2-1 record from groups. I don't think he'll be too disappointed in that. He didn't have a whole lot of time before the group stage started to focus solely on Ori, whereas Epic Cat has really been driving on it kind of hardcore. So I'm sure he won't be too disappointed to have lost to his friend. But coming out with a 2-1 and making himself look good in the process, I think.
Definitely. It is very, very nice that everyone is so friendly in the Ori community. Not that I would expect it to be otherwise, but I could expect some animosity, maybe in some scenarios. It can be easy to let the nerves get to you. I know that I've been pretty guilty of getting tilted myself.
I cannot imagine that, Graham.
No, it's never happened. So we've already talked about this a little, but like I can say that Roos has actually inspired my stream a little bit with how positive he's been able to stay even in the face of some ridiculous mistakes like sticky keys in a race, for example. And Smashy is also just one of the friendlier people I think I've ever met on Twitch.
Smashy finishing up with a 42-15. So congratulations to her on completing the race and coming up with a pretty respectable time for herself. She has, of course, her one match left against Epic Cat in the group stage, and then she'll be done. Pretty good match today.
Definitely. We had some fun times. We had some unexpected operating system behavior, and we had some speedrunning tricks.
Notwithstanding the sticky keys and the accessibility assistant dude, I think we had a pretty close race at the early stages here.
Oh, definitely. They were, again, no disrespect to Smashy, but they were much closer for longer than I would have expected going in, just based on their PBs.
I think Smashfully is a runner who hasn't. I think she hasn't even gotten to show us what she is really capable of, because she is really skilled at this game and she knows a ton, just an absolute ton. But in the tournament so far, it just hasn't come across yet. What we've seen some pretty respectable performances from her, but I feel like we're going to see her really come out of her shell at some point and blow us away with a really solid performance, possibly like a PB type thing or even a victory at some point.
Definitely, I agree. She's certainly been practicing. She's been with Ori for a long time. She's been running it for less time than she's been involved in the community, but she's been around for well over a year at this point. Roos has as well. So I agree. It'll be interesting to see what happens in her race coming up. When is her next race? I have the spreadsheet up.
Let's find out. We can also give an update on
today.
The rest of the schedule. She is finishing up tonight. Well, that's fascinating. Yes, in 12 hours, she will be going up against Epic Key. Epic Key. Oh my goodness. I just read someone saying sticky keys in another chat. So coming up tonight, we've got 3 more matchups for you in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we've got Red Rum doing her second tournament match against IceX123, who's doing his first. We've got Meldon going for his second tournament match against Lucidus, who will be finishing up her group stage at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then wrapping up the night after, I believe there's an interlude, possibly with no other races. We'll be finishing the night at 11 p.m. Eastern. Smashy will be playing her final group stage match against Epic Cat.
It'll be a good evening of Ori.
Indeed, and you're going to be having some good commentators on for those as well, including one individual who looks pretty familiar to me. His name is me. Of course,
me.
this weekend, we're also going to have a ton of great matchups. I'm not going to read off all of those to you, but if you want to find out more about what's coming up, tiny.cc/Ori Sked, SCHED. So go check it out and see what's coming up in the near future. Grim, what are you most excited about of the remaining group stage matches, stuff that you're seeing coming up?
Oh boy, that one's difficult to say. None of them immediately jump out. I mean, I'm kind of excited about just all of these. It'll just be really cool to see how everyone does, especially since a lot of players started running this game basically for the tournaments. And so I see a lot of names that I've known for a long time, and I see a lot of names that I barely know. And so it's just sort of exciting to me to see all the activity.
Yeah, I agree. I will definitely be almost more interested to see the results of some of the races between the newer, less established players than I am for the ones with, the existing established players who are, they're going to kind of take on the newer players. And for the most part, the existing established players are probably going to be, taking those matches, and it won't be that close of a contest. But, we saw, for example, with Melvin versus Rivid, that was an extremely close matchup. And, who knows when we're going to get the next one of those. It could be Richard versus Carfell on Saturday. You never know.
Right, it could be. And the other thing is that even though just by virtue of being around longer, you have some very, very skilled players who've been at it for a very long time, like yourself included, there's still time, especially before the elimination matches. And I know how hard a lot of different people are practicing. We've seen a lot of improvement already. We've seen a lot of PBs, and I think we'll continue to see that, especially from the newer runners.
Indeed. Well, it's been a fun morning. It's been a pleasure commentating with you, Grim, and congratulations to both races, of course.
Yeah, pleasure talking with you as well.
Let's go ahead and call it a morning then, and we'll take off. But we will see you guys back for Ori at 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. And of course, don't forget to follow the Speed Gaming channel for all the races you could possibly handle, and then some. Thanks for watching.